Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Women of Community Banking podcast. I've got Susan with me. Hi Susan, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you today?
Can't complain. Just waiting for the week to end. Today is Thursday and I already thought it's Friday, but it's not. So sad
Oh,
about that, but okay, borderline happy that just another day.
yeah, that's right. Not too long till the weekend.
Not too long. Yeah. It's just a day, so that's okay. So,
Yeah.
quick introduction who Susan is. As you can see, her background, the Keesler Federal logo, right? By now, I think I almost know everyone in Keesler.
I think you might know him better than I do. Yeah.
So Susan is the CFO of Keesler Federal. Spent almost 2 decades in financial services. I think in credit unions for close to 15 years. Spent time across Amplify, Forterra, and now at Keesler. She's a finance girl by profession. I don't want to steal the thunder. I don't want to do a bunch of introduction. Do some less work because I've been talking the entire day. Maybe ask her for an introduction. If you can spend, Susan, maybe a couple of minutes talking about your journey and letting the world know who Susan is, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to first say thank you for having me on. You have some great podcasts, some great guests, so I'm honored to be considered one of them. So thanks for the time today. And yes, thank you. I consider myself a finance gal. I sort of have a non-traditional CFO path, right? And I think for a long time, I really viewed that as something I had to explain away or hide from. But now that I'm in the role and I'm comfortable in the role, I actually think it's what makes me so good at the job and able to have a little bit different lens. You know, credit unions for a long time thought that the CFO role was like your head accountant. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that, right? But accountants by nature are backwards looking. And in finance, we really are forwards looking, right? And so I spent the first half of my career in finance doing investments, financial advisor, portfolio management. And it was super satisfying because what I loved about that job was that I was able to help people. Every client that came in had a different story, a different puzzle, a different problem that needed to be solved. And so I really loved that aspect of that job. But as anyone, and I worked in the wirehouse world, right? So as anybody knows, that world can get tiring. You can get sort of in a rut in that world. And so I actually am also a wife and a mother of 3, as well as a finance gal. So I took a couple of years off to raise my kids. And then in about 2011, I got back into the financial services world. And that's when I found credit unions. So that's when I was in Austin, Texas. And I took a job as a financial advisor at a credit union. It really quickly, I now say, you know, I was saved from the dark side, going from brokerage houses and wirehouses to credit unions. You can imagine the different people. They were like, do whatever the member wants you to do. Just help the member. We don't care about anything else. And that was just so refreshing. And at that time, I met a mentor who ran retail at the credit union I was at. And she really sort of pulled back that corporate curtain for me and allowed me to see the inner workings of the retail branch network, how that worked, and understand how credit unions worked and start seeing the financial pieces of it. And so that's when I sort of fell in love with credit unions and really understanding the structure and what makes a credit union tick and what makes a credit union work. So then I transitioned to another credit union, really more into the corporate finance world. So initially I was managing credit union investment portfolio instead of a retail investment portfolio and looking at a QSO portfolio. And that really was a turning point in my career for me, where I really fell in love with the asset liability management and balance sheet strategy and sort of the interconnectedness of financial performance across the organization and saying, okay, I'm geeking out a little bit, but you know, financial statements really paint a picture for you. And if you can understand the different financial statements, you can understand which levers need to be pulled to get what outcome. And so over time, I really just developed that appreciation for the financial statement. I went back, got my master's degree during COVID. I had all this time on my hands. We were working remote. My kids didn't have any sports. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just go get a master's degree. So I did that, which was super fun. And then that's also when I was like, the CFO is the role that I want. I think I might be one of the few people in the world that was like, CFO would be really fun. That would be a fun job, right? To analyze financial statements. And then I was recruited here at Keesler Federal to be actually the vice president of finance. And I took the job. It was a big move for my family, but I took the job because the team here was so amazing. As we mentioned, you know, most of the team here. And so to be able to work with a group of executive leaders and learn from them was a really great opportunity. So I came over here, was in the VP role for like 6 months, and the CFO that I was reporting to had another opportunity. And so I was sad to see him go, but excited to be able to step into the role of CFO here at Keesler Federal. So that's sort of my journey in a nutshell. It's unorthodox, I guess, to come up as a financial advisor and then end up as a CFO. But I really do think that having that investment lens and the lens of looking at everything as a puzzle and how I can fit everything together is really what makes me a strong CFO, being more strategic and forward looking than backwards looking. So
absolutely. Yeah. Background. She's talking about Sam Sohi, right? So maybe we'll take a selfie like this and we'll send it to Sam. Sam, dude, what's up? Yeah, there.
Yeah, hey Sam. It's all Sam's fault that I'm here on the Gulf Coast, So
nice.
But,
very unconventional journey, right? And rightly from a Merrill Lynch to credit unions, that's a huge jump, and definitely that has been a very good one for you, right? I mean, you're enjoying every single day because of the mission and vision of the movement, and it's not just a money making machine, right? So you love that. Definitely.
I do love that. I mean, it changes. I think everybody wants to feel like they go to work every day and make a difference. And I know that sounds super cliche, but I really do think people want to feel that way. I want to know that the work that I'm doing, even though it might be behind a spreadsheet or, whatever it is actually bettering the community that I live in or bettering the communities that we serve as a credit union. Working at Merrill Lynch, I can say that I had some positive impact on my clients. Overall, I don't know that was what the mission was of that organization. And so to be able to be at a credit union, you're right. It's the best move certainly I ever made. And I think that that's why, because it's a different set of values that we have here at the credit union. So, and I connect with it certainly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Coming on to the next question, Susan, obviously you've been part of one of the largest mergers in the state of Mississippi and Louisiana. Yep. So Keesler merged with Jefferson, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So you led the entire financial due diligence for the entire merger because you're a CFO, right?
That's right. Yeah.
What was the experience like?
I think it was the most complex, humbling, and rewarding experiences I've ever gone through in my career. I mean, it was a privilege to be able to go through that. And so, technically speaking, of course, we had to do all the normal stuff, right? We had to dive into the financials, really deeply understand another credit union's financials. We had to understand their credit risk. We had to understand their infrastructure, their technology, any sort of regulatory considerations. So it wasn't just about understanding their financials, but understanding the underlying drivers of their financial performance and how we could work together with that and how that would not impact our financial performance, right? That was a big piece of it too. But then on the other side, when you're in credit union world, a merger isn't just a financial transaction. If you're merging two banks together, there's a very specific valuation, a very specific financial transaction that takes place. But here, there's a huge human and cultural dimension because there really isn't a financial transaction that happens. And so there's a commitment to the credit union members, the employees, and to the communities. And so we needed to understand how Keesler and Jefferson could, as two completely separate organizations, come together in a way that preserved trust and strengthened this new organization and enhanced the member value that was happening, not just for the Jefferson members as they were being merged in, but also with the Keesler members. They needed to understand, what does this even mean for us? Why do we care about doing this, right? So the whole process, it just required a lot of alignment across from our executive team, their executive team, our board, from both boards, from all the members, from all the employees. A lot of scenario analysis and then communication. This is a project that, our CEO was working on it before I even knew about it, right? So this has been a culmination of close to 2 years probably by the time we finally did everything. And so it was a lot of behind the scenes work. There was a lot of stressful nights, there was plenty of times like, why are we even doing this? But you work through that and you do realize that, hey, these are members that we were just getting into that market. And Jefferson had such a great and rich history in the market in Louisiana that it just made sense. And culturally, we fit, and their team is now our team. We're all one team now. And there's a lot of positions they've just sort of integrated together. And now I think the coolest part was, you do all this work. And then in March, we completed our core conversion, which was the big one, right? That's when all their members came onto our core banking system. And that was the one that had the most member impact and potentially the worst impact if it went badly. And so we were very nervous about that. But we had one weekend where all the key stakeholders were basically up for 3 days straight trying to make sure that all of this happened. And to see these teams come together and like, it's like they all went through this, they all have PTSD together now from this common thing that they went through. And that's terrible to say, but the teams, I mean, we didn't have, of course we had some minor problems, but we didn't have any major problems. Everything went as well as it could. And the teams just came together and really executed. So I think that was after all this 2 years of work to see that happen and to see the bonds that happened between our teams to really then come out the other side and say, okay, now we're one team. Like, I feel like everybody's saying we can do anything now. You know, we just did this merger. Nothing is impossible for us anymore. So it was humbling. It was hard, but it was certainly rewarding at the end of it for sure. And I feel like it is over, but it takes a while to get through everything. We're still trying to iron everything out and make sure everybody is aligned, but we've made huge strides. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think the merger helps even the teams to bond better because you're working towards that same one goal, and it's not an easy journey for sure.
That's right. Well, and it was, we had a Teams chat that was everybody in this Teams chat, and it was just the silliness that was going on. It was almost just like, it's 3:30 in the morning and they're jabbing back and forth and everybody's just jumping in. Like, I don't really know what you're talking about, but let me see what I can do to help you. And then you have people showing up, I think I showed up at 5:00 in the morning with a bunch of donuts for everybody and just people showing up at different times to help out. We had cots set up in different rooms so people could rest. It was just like the Wild West out here, but it was this, we were all working toward this common goal of making sure that all those members were taken care of in the right way. And when everybody really did rally around that goal, you could see it, and it just happened. It happened in the most amazing way. So I'm really proud of the team for that. They did an awesome job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One, I would say, weird question, but still. So, is there anything that keeps you up at the night, being a CFO now?
Yeah, I think if you ask anybody on my team right now, they would say Susan's worried about expenses because I've been talking about expenses all week, and I am worried about that, but that's just part of the job, right? But I do think the one thing that keeps me up at night right now is really our members. And what I mean by that is there is so much going on right now economically and just all over the world. I'm worried about the real impact that it's starting to have on our members. Just people are having to make decisions today about like which payment to make. Do I make my house payment and then I make my credit card payment, or I make my car payment? Gas is expensive, groceries are expensive. Inflation is what it is. Costs of everything is going up, and I'm not trying to get political, but that affects our members, and our members are members of modest means. Government workers as a large part of our membership, and with stuff that's going on with the government, they've missed paychecks. And so there's the concern about how do we even put food on the table for my family? And so I think just making sure that we can help our members face those difficult times and provide solutions for them. And then on the flip side, our members' expectations are evolving rapidly. And so we are in a world where our members, like, they almost want us to tell them what they want and need before they even know what they want and need. And they want it delivered to them, personalized, customized, and on a silver platter, ready to go. And so in the credit union world as a whole, being that we're not for profit, I think we've sort of lagged the industry, financial services industry, on our technology and our digital capabilities. And I know you had our CIO, Anil, in here, and he talked a lot about that. And he's amazing person to work with. And I don't understand most of what he says when it comes to technology. But we really do. I mean, that is the expectations of our members to meet their demand in a way that we've never had to do it before. So I think you take the ability to give them products and services that they need in a way that they expect and want it. And that's what we have to be able to do as a credit union, right? And we have to be financially disciplined while we're doing that. So I think all of that together is sort of just what keeps me up at night. How can we compete and stay relevant in a world that's full of fintechs and these banks that are, they're dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into technology every year. And we can't do that, right? And so we have to be a little bit creative. And we have to really build the relationships with our members on trust and that value to be able to stay relevant for them. So that's, I think, what keeps me up at night the most. Stuff, trying to solve the world's problems.
No, I think, that's relevant. That's the reason we talk about mission. We talk about mission of what we are doing right now. You're not chasing EPS and EBIT for sure, right? So you're chasing impact. So my next question is actually dovetailing into impact itself, right? I mean, you commonly say that growth isn't about numbers, but growth is about the impact. And that's table stakes when talking about credit unions, right? We have to measure impact. But still, that's one school of thought, Susan. But the other school of thought is you have to maintain a healthy balance sheet for us to even contribute back to the community. A broke credit union is no good for anyone.
Right.
Let's accept the fact. So how do you balance this financial discipline with the member first mission? Because both of them are not, if not complete extremes, but extremes. One is asking you to do good. The other one is asking you to do good only when it is profitable for the institution, right? So how do you look at both the sides of the coin and make it work?
I think that's a great question. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't really understand when you talk about credit unions, right? Because there's people that even work at Keesler Federal that say things like, well, we're not for profit, so it doesn't matter how much money we spend, right? Well, that's just simply not the case, because when you think about it, the same financial fundamentals exist across really any banking, credit unions, fintechs, really all industry, right? We have to have strong capital. We have to have healthy liquidity. We have to have sustainable margins, discipline management. Because you're right, if we don't have those basic things, we're not any good to anybody, right? We're not good to our employees. We're certainly not good to our members. And so I think that the key as a credit union CFO is to look at those numbers with a different lens, right? So I'm not looking at those numbers and saying, how can I maintain this balance sheet and maximize my net interest margin for my shareholders so I can pay them a really great dividend at the end of the year, or I can increase their share price? I'm doing it to say, how can I give back more? One of the things we love, as credit unions, we do it all the time. We boast on how much money did we give back to our members last year? What was our community investment? And in order to make that number grow, we have to make our top line revenues grow, right? Or we have to shrink our expenses. And part of our mission is to be just good stewards of our members' money. At the end of the day, our members are our shareholders, and it's their money that creates our balance sheet. And we have to be good stewards of that money. I think it's generating strong results and then understanding how those results translate into meaningful value for our members. So we were, last year in 2025, not only did we do this merger, but we had this huge net income year that we produced all of this income. And one of the things that I made a point to do was tell our board, not only did we make more money than we ever have this year, but we gave back, we paid more dividends to our members than we ever have before. We were paying top of the market dividends to all of our members. We were giving loan discounts to members. We were doing meaningful lending. I call it meaningful lending, right? We're lending to members that instead of going out on the market and having to get a payday loan or a title loan or something, we're giving them the loans at reasonable rates that they can actually afford. And so I think that's the lens you have to look at it in. And if we want to do that, if we want to do lending and lower credit tiers, and we want to maximize dividends for our members, and we want to continue to do loan discounts, we have to make money and we have to maintain capital so that we can do all those things. I think that's the key. We want to be financially sound and stable so that we can, there's nothing else. I love going out to my board at the end of the year and saying, look at what we did, right? And it's not look at what I did. It's look at what the credit union did. It's look at what our members are getting from us at the credit union. And that makes you feel, really good when you can say, look, we put 150 people into homes that have never
That's
owned.
a important thing.
That's huge. And we did it by helping them and finding out. It's like the path to yes. It's how can we get our members into a car so they can get to work every day? How can we get our members into a home so they can provide for their families? And that's the lens you have to look at the financials. It's not that we're not here to make money. We just do something different with that money when we make it. So I don't know if
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That summed up really well. I mean, that again sums up multiple times why credit unions and why is it important to lead the mission. And absolutely. So now changing the gear a bit, right? A lot about credit unions and finance.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about you.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this. I mean, this is not your first rodeo. You've been doing it for decades now, right?
Yeah.
So one of the best pieces of the interview or the show is when I ask people to share one piece of wisdom or advice to your younger self when you started back, like n number of years back. So if you were to go back, Susan, and tell your younger self, you're still young, but still tell your younger self one thing, what would that be?
So I saw this on the question list and I was like, there's 100 things I would go back and tell my younger self, like, gosh, don't be so stupid. Don't be so naive. But I really did think about it. And I think the one thing my pearl of wisdom, and I've told this to a couple people here at Keesler that have, I've had conversations with, it's just like, learn to enjoy where you are in your journey. And so, when I was younger, it was all about, and I've talked to my husband about this too, and he's an amazing supporter of me and my career, and we've supported each other throughout our careers. And him and I say this all the time, like, we were so excited and anxious just to get to the next level, like whatever the next level was, and that's all we ever focused on. What we should have done was just been like, man, we made it here. Isn't this a great place to be? Enjoy that spot and learn as much as we could while we were there. I think that for your mental health, first of all, that does so much. And you always want to be driven and you always want to be ambitious, but just taking a minute to like enjoy the accomplishments that you've done so far and just sort of be, for any lack of a better word, and I think even as a parent, I've learned to do that more too. When your kids are little, you're like, when they just don't need me to do this, then we can do, like, world opens up and we can do all these things, but just enjoy where you are, because every period, every phase of life has an end. And so just enjoy it while you're in it instead of always trying to go to the next thing. So that's, I think, what I would tell myself. I don't know if my younger self would listen to that though. So it might be wasted words.
I mean, this is possibly the best piece of advice I get on a Thursday afternoon. Same. I don't settle down and relish the accomplishment, whatever, right? But wherever I've come from, I come from a very small little town back in India, not Mumbai's or the Delhi's of the world, very small little town. I would say, celebrate myself that you've come so far, but we don't do it. We always think about what's next. Yeah. What is the next thing that you want to do? But hearing you, it makes me rethink life priorities that, yes, maybe I should chill a bit and relax and learn or make the most out of it at the current moment of time. So thank you for sharing that. That really made me think through.
Yeah, well, and you certainly have so much to celebrate. So you should definitely take a moment and celebrate everything.
I don't know about that, but it's always work in progress. The show must go on.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
One last question, Susan, right? So let's talk about a member story. Do you want to share a favorite member story that you loved?
I have to say, being that I worked in like wealth management and a financial advisor at a credit union, I feel like I have so many member stories that like just touched my heart. So this might have been the hardest question for me, actually, but I will tell one. It was when I was a financial advisor and I had a client / member. She was a member at the credit union. And her husband passed away and she was young and she had 2 young girls and she didn't know what to do, And so when you think about as a financial advisor, I mean, I wasn't actually commission based at the credit union, but a lot of them are. And she didn't know who to go to. She didn't know she could trust. And so she came to her credit union. She knew she could trust the people at her credit union. And so that's where she came and she and I met and we created a huge financial plan for her. And she was she was in a very good situation in that they had done all the right things they should have done to prepare for a situation like this. And so that made it a little bit easier. But we talked about what her goals were. What do you need this money to do for you and your girls? Where are you trying to be? And we set up this whole plan for her. And she was my client for the whole time and I still talk to her to this day, even though I'm not handling her money anymore. It was cool for me because we set the big thing for her was I need to take care of these girls. I have 2 small girls and I want to take care of them. And so we created a plan that would provide money for her and her girls where she would never have to be stressed about anything. And then we set up college funds for the girls and both of the girls worked very hard. Made it through college, both have graduate degrees, and both of the girls came back. And I knew the girls, like I was involved, got graduate, all the stuff because we had worked so closely together. But the final moment, so it's always fun when you see a plan come all the way to fruition and work, just like everything, you put a plan together, but you don't really know if it's going to work or not until it starts working. So to see a plan come to fruition and see these girls be so successful. But then at the end of when the second one graduated with a graduate degree, the girls called me and came back and they said, we've seen you work with our mom all these years. And because of the work you and her did together, we were able to be successful and come out of college, no debt, all this great stuff. And they said, we have this family that we've been friends with for a really long time. Will you help us set up their college plans so that they can have the same opportunities that we had? And so it was like this whole full circle moment where they had seen this whole plan work out. They were so grateful. And then they took their own money and opened up college plans for a whole nother cycle of people. Like, if that's not the credit union mission, I don't know what was. She could have gone anywhere in her time of need, this mother, and she came to her credit union because we are who she trusted. We put this plan together. And then at the end of the life cycle, the daughter said, we want to do it for somebody else. So that just sort of, gives me all the feels that not only did she raise these great girls, but they're giving back and carrying it forward. So that, I think, is my favorite story.
I mean, we can talk about member stories for us, but
the amount of, money saved, lives changed. I mean, it really is what credit unions are, and I've seen it at all the credit unions that I've been at. I mean, what credit unions are doing in people's lives every single day. I mean, I was in the parking lot 2 weeks ago at Keesler, and the receptionist in our lobby was telling me how a member was in there. It was a senior situation. We know our members so well that when something's not right, we know. And they come to us because they trust us. And so, we take bad situations and turn them into these happy life moments all the time, and I just love that.
This was amazing, sharing your journeys, sharing your point of view. Very good episode where we understood the balance between balance sheets as well as impact, right? Not a very traditional episode, I would say. It was a good one. We had a very good conversation. And again, ma'am, thank you. Thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you.